Sure you don't really mean that, Lois?
I don't believe this.
Lois? I never lie.
So, you think you know the original Superman movie? The one from 1978 that promised you'll believe a man can fly? Yeah, that one. Here's the thing, even if you've seen it a lot, I bet you missed wild details hiding in plain sight. This movie's packed with clever tricks, Easter eggs, and even a few accidents that slipped into the final cut. Let's find out. Here are 10 wild moments in Superman, the movie, most fans never catch. Wait until you hear number 7. That one's crazy. Fact 1. Clark Kent's height trick. Christopher Reeve had a superpower of his own: body language. Watch him as Clark Kent. He slouches, tilts his head down, raises his voice a little higher. He moves like he doesn't want to be noticed. You look at him and think, yeah, this guy could never be Superman. But then, when he becomes Superman, everything changes. He stands tall, chest out, voice lower and steady. Suddenly, he looks like a completely different person. Taller, stronger, more confident. No camera tricks, no fancy effects, just acting. That's why his Clark Kent works so well. He actually sells the disguise. And honestly, if Reeve pulled that off so perfectly, the movie needed someone just as sharp to play opposite him. Which brings us to Margot Kidder. Fact 2. Lois Lane's flirty audition. Margot Kidder didn't just walk into the audition, read her lines, and leave. Nope, she made it fun. She teased Reeve, joked with him, threw in little playful moments, and Reeve just rolled with it. Richard Donner, the director, sat there watching and thought, yep, that's Lois Lane. And you can totally see it in the movie. That rooftop interview between Lois and Superman, it works because their chemistry is real. Lois throws questions at him. Superman answers with that calm charm, and it feels like two people actually flirting, not just two actors reading lines. Their connection started the first time they met in an audition room, and it carried all the way into the final film. Now, while the actors were bringing that spark to life, the filmmakers were sneaking in deeper details, even into Superman's symbol. Fact 3. The S is more than a letter. Everyone knows the big S on Superman's chest, right? But in this movie, it's not just a superhero logo. Look at Jor-El's robes back on Krypton. You'll see the same S right there. That's because it's not just an S, it's the crest of Superman's family, the House of El. That one detail changes everything. The costume isn't just something Clark put together on Earth. It's part of his family history, his Kryptonian roots, passed down from his father. So yeah, when you see that S, it's not just Superman, it's heritage. And speaking of Jor-El, Marlon Brando had his own wild way of playing him. Fact 4. Marlon Brando's hidden cue cards. Marlon Brando was one of the greatest actors of his time, but memorizing lines? Forget it. He hated it. So what did the crew do? They literally plastered his speeches on cue cards all over the set. On walls, on props, sometimes even held up by other actors standing just out of frame. If you watch his eyes in those Krypton scenes, you'll catch it. Little flicks left and right as he reads. And the crazy part? It actually works. His delivery comes off calm, thoughtful, like Jor-El is making it up on the spot. So the thing that could have been a disaster actually gave his performance that wise, otherworldly vibe. Only Brando could get away with something like that. But speaking of tricks to sell the impossible, let's talk about how they made a man fly before CGI was even a thing. Fact 5. The flying harness lines. Remember, this was 1978. No digital effects, no green screen magic like today. When they said, "You'll believe a man can fly," they had to figure it out the hard way. The team used wires, harnesses, and this groundbreaking technique called the Zoptic process, basically a fancy camera and projector system that made backgrounds move with Reeve so the flight looked real. Most of the time, it's flawless, but if you pause in some close-ups, you might spot faint harness lines at his shoulders or waist. Little reminders that yes, Christopher Reeve was literally hanging in the air. And honestly, that makes it even cooler. You weren't watching pixels on a screen. You were watching a guy really flying on wires, making it look effortless. Now, while Superman was soaring, the filmmakers hid a cheeky little Easter egg in the newsroom. One that ties him to another movie legend, James Bond. Fact 6. The hidden 007 Easter egg. Next time you're watching a scene inside Perry White's office, look closely at the shelves in the background. Tucked away, there's a tiny James Bond poster. Why would James Bond show up in Superman? Simple. The movie was filmed at Pinewood Studios in England, the same place where all those classic Bond films were shot. Donner and the crew slipped it in as a wink, a little inside joke for anyone paying attention. It doesn't change the story, but it connects Superman to the larger movie world of the 70s. Kind of like saying, yeah, James Bond walked these halls too. And while that's a fun little nod, not every moment on set was planned. Some were accidents, like the explosion that shocked everyone. Fact 7. The real explosion that shocked the crew. There's a scene where Superman saves a train from disaster by holding up the broken track. Sparks fly everywhere. But here's the thing, those sparks weren't supposed to be that big. The blast went off stronger than planned, and if you watch Christopher Reeve's face, you'll see it. That quick jolt of surprise, totally real. The director thought it looked amazing, so he left it in the final cut. A genuine accident turned into movie magic. And that was the kind of spirit of this whole film. Even when things didn't go exactly as planned, the end result somehow made the movie better. Of course, flying still had one more hidden trick up its sleeve, and once you know it, you'll never unsee it. Fact 8. The tiny cape trick. Here's something you probably never thought about. How does Superman's cape always flow perfectly when he's flying? In real life, fabric doesn't behave that nicely. It tangles, flaps, gets messy, but in Superman, the movie, it always looks smooth and dramatic. The secret? Hidden wires sewn into the cape. Sometimes they even attached the fabric to little mechanisms in Reeve's harness so the crew could control how it moved. That's why the cape doesn't just flap around randomly. It glides like it's alive. And once you know this, you can't unsee it. Watch the long flying shots and you'll notice the cape moves a little too perfectly. That's movie magic. But speaking of backgrounds worth staring at, Lex Luthor's hideout was a sneaky little secret of its own. Fact 9. Lex Luthor's map room secret. Lex Luthor's underground lair is covered in giant maps of the United States. Most people just glance at them and move on. But if you pause and look closely, fans swear you can spot tiny Superman logos hidden in the map borders. It's like the production designer slipped in a wink just for the hardcore viewers. Has it ever been officially confirmed? Not really. But knowing how playful the set design was, remember Otisburg? It totally fits. So next time you watch, keep your eyes on those maps. You might catch Superman's mark hiding right under Lex's nose. And if you think that's sneaky, wait until you hear what's going on in the Daily Planet newsroom. Fact 10. The newspaper headlines reveal everything. The Daily Planet isn't just a backdrop, it's full of hidden clues. If you pause on the newspapers lying around the newsroom, you'll see headlines that actually foreshadow Lex Luthor's plans. Mentions of strange tremors, military movements, odd warnings, all pointing toward the disasters he's about to unleash. Most people never notice because the props flash by so quickly, but they're there, quietly building the world and planting seeds before the main story reveals them. It's smart, subtle storytelling, hiding the villain's plan in plain sight. And while the props were doing secret storytelling, Christopher Reeve himself was going through a transformation just as dramatic. Bonus: Reeve's body transformation. Here's the truth. When Christopher Reeve first landed the role, he was tall but skinny, not exactly Man of Steel material. So the studio paired him with David Prowse, the bodybuilder who also played Darth Vader in Star Wars. Prowse put Reeve through months of training and he gained more than 30 pounds of muscle. If you look closely, you can actually see the difference. In some of the earlier scenes, he's still lean, but later on he's filled out the suit, broad-shouldered and powerful. No fake muscles, no padding. Reeve built Superman's body for real. It's part of why his version still feels so authentic today. He didn't just act the part, he became it. So, there you have it. From hidden crests to cue cards, from sneaky Easter eggs to real on-set accidents, Superman the movie is full of wild details most fans miss. Which one surprised you the most? The cape trick? Or Brando secretly reading off cue cards? Drop your favorite in the comments, I'd love to know. Because before Marvel, before Batman, before the endless multiverse, there was Superman, the film that made the whole world believe a man could fly. And if you enjoyed this dive into movie secrets, check out our next video, 10 wild moments you never noticed in Happy Gilmore, a nostalgic trip packed with chaos, hidden gems, and one bonus moment you won't believe.